Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. Fairhaven Health is introducing a new product. I guess it's not new anymore, but my notes still say that. The medium new product, the Sage Personal Moisture and Lubricant. Sage Personal Moisturizer and Lubricant. Or Sage Personal... Oh, God. Personal moisture and lubricant. Hi, Happy New Year. We'll pretend like we've been off for a couple weeks, and that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, this week's episode is also sponsored by Simple Wishes. Simple Wishes offers hands-free pumping and nursing bras featuring a patented dual-function nursing clasp. And you will hear more about our sponsors in a little while, but you can head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page. If you need anything, check there and see if you can give any of them your business because they make this podcast possible. And now Dianne has our review of the week and she could take the pressure off me.
And I can work around this a little bit. And it comes from our Gmail account, which is badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. And thank you so much for sending this in to that. You can also put your reviews on iTunes, which helps us a lot. And people have been doing that a lot lately. I've been trying to bounce between the iTunes reviews and the email reviews, but we've been getting a lot on iTunes. So I'm going to have to go with that in the new year because you guys are awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. That's awesome. And this comes from Stephanie. I don't usually do reviews, but I needed to review you guys. A little backstory. My baby was down 9% at 24 hours and still didn't continue to gain. My pediatrician recommended supplementing with my milk. I had started pumping very early, which was good, but also bad advice because I fell down a pumping rabbit hole. Kind of made me feel like him nursing wasn't working. He wasn't transferring well, etc. From weeks 2 to 12, I would only breastfeed twice a day and pumped the rest. I could see what I was making and from what he was getting, and it was comforting. It was much more tangible. I was returning to work in 5 days and decided to try exclusively breastfeeding because I wanted to build my supply up. I had said I would give myself 24 hours and monitor his diapers, behavior, and everything. I'm now 3 days in and wish I had tried this sooner. My milk supply is great. I've never stashed so much. I'm not stressed out about needing to be home to pump and mentally just got so much better. I've been listening to a podcast every day, and you ladies completely changed my mindset and made me realize how messed up society is. Always, I just want to say thank you. You motivated me to put the baby to my damn boob, trust my body, and let him do his thing. And congratulations. You did amazing.
That's what it's all about right there.
Yep. It's a really hard thing to turn around. It is. And you did amazing. So congratulations to you. And thank you so much for letting us know your story. It really means a lot. And today we are going to talk about overfeeding.
Yeah.
Cue the doom music.
Man, that's happening a lot. Oh my God. As soon as you said cue the doom music, my kids are watching this. YouTube, and it played some doom music.
Did it really?
To God, at the exact same time. It was that scary sound from little YouTubers that make these videos.
Oh man.
Yeah. I know I should have had it closer. It would have been funny.
It's what we need right now because I already want to complain because I'm going to probably rant a lot this episode. So if you hate that, if anybody hates that, I'm just warning you in advance. This is seriously one of my biggest pet peeves. It is seriously one of my biggest ones. And doing a little bit of Googling, which if you listen to the last episode of the last year, which was combo feeding, we were talking about why you should not Google stuff. And this is exactly why.
So Dianne promptly went to Google and started
to Google because sometimes I do it intentionally to be like, all right, let me see what kind of bullshit is out there. And one of the things that I'm reading was it's very rare to overfeed a baby, blah, blah, blah. And it's no, it's not.
Yeah, it's extremely common. No.
It is so common. I see it every day. And it is just and one of the pediatricians that I work with, she's so funny. She'll be like, all right, will you talk to this mom? It's totally an overfeeding thing. They know, totally knows. They'll even set now. It gets to the point where they have me just talk to the bottle feeding moms too. Not even just the breastfeeding mom, the bottle feeding moms too, because it happens all the time. It happens with the breastfeeding babies, but it happens more with the bottle feeding babies.
So you can overfeed a baby from the breast?
Well, we see it with breastfeeding babies when they're supplementing them, or if they don't know the baby's cues. So they're like, oh, well, I think the baby is not getting enough to eat. So then they start pumping and then they start giving more, or they'll start supplementing with some formula because they think the baby, and then before you know it, the baby's overfed. Or you see it, like, I see this a lot, like when babies first discharged from the hospital because they're told you're not making enough milk or you don't have enough milk and you have to give the baby more and blah, blah, blah. And then those babies are being overfed. I see that. I do occasionally see a baby where especially if a mom has an oversupply of milk, just like naturally has this oversupply of milk, and babies are just like feeding and feeding, and they're just like getting too much milk. Like they're just getting too much, and sometimes that could be a mom just constantly putting the baby on because she's afraid the baby isn't eating enough, or the baby just has that, just really has that comfort nursing. Some babies are comfort nursers, some are not comfort nursers. And if it's like a really comfort nursing baby, like sometimes they will get too much, which will lead them to not feel good, which will lead them to want to nurse more because they want to be comforted. So it like becomes this cycle. But the majority of the time, it's from supplementing.
It's usually from bottles because we don't understand how to bottle feed.
Right.
And we don't understand that sucking is a reflex for the baby. You put the bottle in their mouth, they have no choice but to suck and swallow.
Yes.
What do you want them to do? They're babies.
And that's what I have the same, I'm going to like record myself, I think, and just like push a button because I know
it's recording right now.
That's true. But like when I go into rooms or when I sit and talk to moms, like I visualize myself like from 1980s with those handheld carrier recorders, and you could just like walk it around. I should just bring it everywhere with me because I really feel like this is a conversation I have with almost every single family, because they always say, well, the baby took the bottle, so they must have been hungry, or the baby, was hungry. Yes. So they took, because the first 3 months of the baby's life, their suck is an involuntary reflex. And if you put the bottle in their mouth, they will absolutely take it. It has zero correlation to whether or not they're hungry. It is completely a reflex. So that is a very important thing. And one of the things that I read in this stupid article that pissed me off, not only did they say, it's hard, it's very hard to overfeed a baby, or it's very rare to overfeed a baby. The other thing they said was, bottle feeding is so easy for them. That is not the truth either. Bottle feeding is not easier for babies. And we talked about that. I think we did an episode on that, didn't we? About why it's not easier for babies to bottle feed. It's not. It is hard for them to bottle feed.
I don't know.
I'll have to look. I don't remember what we've done anymore.
No, there's a lot of episodes, but yeah, it's not easier. And it's just, people are thinking, so this is like the cycle, because you put the bottle in the baby's mouth. We definitely talk about this with paste feeding.
Yes.
You put the bottle in the baby's mouth, they suck. Oh my God, they were still hungry. I'm not making enough milk. See? And the baby will just continue to swallow because they have no choice. And then it's like, oh my God, my baby ate 8 ounces of milk. And then the baby is like sick because they're overfed. And by the way, if you were pumping, you're like, oh my God, I can't keep up with my baby because they're drinking so much milk. And, then it's this vicious cycle.
The other thing I really don't understand is when people think that their baby is born and they're the hungriest baby on the planet.
They have room for ounces and ounces of milk. Yeah.
And people have said, oh, but no, I couldn't keep up. He was so hungry. He was just such a hungry baby. What are they born? I'm sure there are babies that are born with this, metabolism where they're, burning more, whatever. But overall, I mean, their stomach does not hold that much volume.
No, it doesn't hold that much volume, and they just sucked you dry for 9 months. So they're pretty set right when they're born.
There's no reason why they need
oh my God, I'm so hungry in there. There's barely anything in there. I'm so hungry.
And that is another thing that, that parents think that their baby is born and they're starving. Yeah. Babies also don't know what hunger feels like. right? Like all these sensations, that's a sensation. Hunger is a sensation that they have to figure out. Just like everything else is very brand new to them. So they're not born and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm starving. Like that, the cluster feeding that those babies do in the, the second day of life and all this, people are like, they're starving. They're not starving. I promise you.
Yeah.
Your baby is not starving. They're cluster feeding because they're like, where the hell am I? And they just want to be connected to you. Like that is really what it's about. It is not that they are so hungry that they cannot function. They are just want to be on you all the time. That is a normal newborn thing. And we mistake that for they're starving. I need to give them more. What we end up doing is stretching their stomach. That's what we end up doing as a society. And everybody's like, feed these babies, get them fed. And then even I see it all, like people tell me all the time, because I will ask them, see, like, I'm so aggravated by this topic that like my brain is working faster than my mouth is. So now I'm like, I got to talk about all these things. But
get a pen and jot them down.
I know I did that too. And I'm not even looking at it because I'm like, and then like all this stuff. But really like when people call me regarding issues of, babies spitting up, babies being fussy, all this different stuff that has to do with overfeeding. And we'll talk about some of those things that you can watch for. But a lot of times I will ask like, well, what's your baby's weight gain? Because that will tell me. Like that will tell me a lot. And that's one of the first things I look at when I have patients come into the pediatric office. That's one of the first things I look at is the weight gain. Because if your baby is gaining like way more than the typical half an ounce to an ounce a day that we expect, we know that baby is overfeeding. Like that's your evidence right there. And often, not from our office necessarily, but from other, pediatric offices that I see, people say, oh, your baby's doing great. They're gaining great. And they just kind of like disregard it.
Yeah, well, because you see babies gaining a lot of weight. People are like, oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, they gained even more than they were supposed to? Oh, that's great.
What's going to happen when they're 2? They're going to put them on a freaking diet.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen.
Like, oh, they're overweight. They're obese.
Now they're overweight. Yeah. Ugh. Now they're overweight. Well, maybe we should have thought about it because overfeeding, and this has been researched and evidence-based science, that when those babies are overfed as infants, they're more likely to be overweight going into their life.
Right.
Which is why we have an obesity problem in our country. But that's a different topic. So what is really, really important is to be watching for the cues. And it's not, and I know that there are some cultures, like I definitely had a family very, very recently that it was their culture that the baby be overfed. And this was a little baby. And they were like, well, how many pounds should he gain a week? Like, that's literally what they said. How many pounds a week should he gain? Yeah. And I was like 7 ounces, like half a pound a week. Like that's what he should be getting. They were like, no, we need him to eat more. Like they really.
Oh my God.
And that is very frightening to me, I feel like, because it's like, we don't want babies that are overfeeding. You are going to definitely see problems. You're just going to, you're going to see problems with those babies. You're going to see a lot more spitting up. Babies spit up anyway, right? We see the majority of babies spit up. It doesn't always mean that it's an overfeeding problem, but if they're spitting up a lot, like all the time, frequently, every feeding, after every bottle, that is going to tell me, okay, they're overfeeding, especially if you're like breastfeeding and then you give them something else afterwards because you think they're still hungry. Sometimes I'll be like, are they spitting up? Oh yeah, usually after the bottle. It's too much. They don't need it. Don't give it to them anymore. Like it's too much. Babies cannot hold the volume that we think they can. Like, I don't know if it's like, is it just a visual thing that we think, okay, an ounce is not enough for me to quench my thirst? How could it possibly be enough for my baby? Like, I don't know. Is that what we think?
I don't know. Yeah. Because it doesn't seem like very much, but people don't seem to take into consideration that the baby is like 50 times smaller than they are.
Right.
I don't.
Like I think we really feel like, oh, that can't be enough. Is that enough? That can't be enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much of the panic too. It's just like they're not getting enough. That's just what we automatically think.
Yeah.
I'm not making enough. The baby's not getting enough. That's what is going to be the problem. And then sometimes that's what leads to overfeeding. And then other times it's just, I think a lot of the times it's people just don't understand how to bottle feed.
Yeah. A lot of it definitely is a bottle feeding for sure.
Yeah. You don't lay a baby on their back and then put the bottle in their mouth and wait until they're done sucking.
Yeah.
'Cause they're just going to overfeed that way. You sit them up. Go to the paced bottle feeding episode and you sit them up, support them, and hold the bottle horizontal.
Yeah,
and let them make them work for it to suck the bottle out, not just have it, pouring down their throat.
And I'll link the paced bottle feeding episode if anybody hasn't listened to that one yet, because it is a really good episode, especially if you are planning. And this is like a great time frame for that, because I know this is coming out right now in the beginning of the year. It's our first episode of 2022. And a lot of parents do go back to work. They kind of use, the new year as okay, I'm going to go back to work after the new year kind of thing. So if you have not looked into that paced bottle feeding, I'm going to link that.
Yeah. And I did a paced bottle feeding demo on my page.
Oh, cool. Okay. That might be on our show notes, right? Oh,
I don't know. It was pretty new. And it was like, it's just like a few minutes. It's better. I'll find it and we can link that too. And you can just watch it. It's just a few minutes and it shows you exactly how to paste bottle feed to avoid overfeeding, to exactly avoid this thing. And you show it to all of your, even people, because I did it with Fairhaven Health. And the lady from Fairhaven Health was like, I'm giving this to my parents. Because they're going to be taking care of my baby and they're going to watch this, and you give it to your caregivers. And the other thing, which maybe we could have to talk about after we take a break, but is daycares.
Yes, because that's on my list. Oh my God. Yeah. Because that's where you see the overfeeding, either at like caretakers, whether it be grandparents or daycares or whatever, you see that overfeeding. And the early days where you think your baby's starving to death, like those are the biggest times we see that overfeeding. So yes, we're going to definitely hit on that. So let's do that after we talk about our sponsors.
All right. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. Fairhaven Health is excited to introduce a sort of new product, Sage Personal Moisturizer and Lubricant. This is the newest product in their Vaginal Care and Comfort collection. Products designed to support vaginal health through every life stage. Sage is designed to replenish your natural lubrication and provide temporary relief from vaginal dryness. While vaginal dryness is most common in older women, there are a handful of other factors that lead to vaginal dryness. Breastfeeding, antidepressants, some fertility and cancer medications, stress, and even exercise. As with all their vaginal care products, Sage is made without estrogen, parabens, glycerol, or coating oils. Check out Sage and all the other vaginal care products at fairhavenhealth.com. That's FAIRHAVEN Health. And use code BADASS for 15% off of your purchase. And today's episode is also brought to you by Simple Wishes. Simple Wishes offers hands-free pumping and nursing bras featuring a patented dual-function nursing clasp to easily switch between nursing and pumping, and buttery soft, light-as-air fabrics for 24/7 comfort. Simply undo the lower clasp and slide your pump flange into the hidden pump support liner for a hands-free pumping experience. Undo the upper clasp for easy access for breastfeeding. Simple Wishes bras are smooth with no lumps that show under your shirt. The bras are designed to fit every shape of breast so that you don't need to feel uncomfortable while you are trying to pump or enjoy a nursing session with your baby. No one wants to waste their money on cheap products that don't last. Simple Wishes has you covered for your entire journey. You can check out every style of bra at simplewishes.com. Use code BADASS30 for 30% off of your purchase. And today's sponsors and their promo codes can be found in our show notes under this episode on badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. Our show notes will also include further information about things we talk about in this episode, and at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. You will also find our breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne. And now, back to daycares.
And the overfeeding that could happen. That is one of the biggest places I see overfeeding.
Absolutely. And they don't listen to you at all.
No.
They're like, they just think that you have to do everything they say. Huh?
Which is not the case. And it is really, I don't know what it's like in other parts of the United States when it comes to daycare, or other parts of the world when it comes to daycares. I know what happens in my little neck of the woods. And I know that right now, well, probably the last, I don't know, couple of years at least, finding a daycare is super hard, which I never thought would actually be a thing. I never had to go through that process. I had family and stuff, which was so wonderful and made things a lot easier. But I do have a lot of clients that use your typical daycares, and there's wait lists. Like, they have to get on these wait lists the minute they pee on the stick and find out that the baby, that they're pregnant, and they're getting on wait. And I'm like, that is super stressful.
It's so stressful.
And then you finally get to the point where you have your baby, you go back to work, you've been on this wait list. There's so many other, there's not a lot of availability for other daycares, and you're struggling with them because they're not feeding your baby the way you want them to. And they're overfeeding your baby, which is typically what we see. And you don't want to say anything because it's like, okay, I don't have anybody else to watch my baby. And it becomes this really hard battle. And then you're trying to keep up pumping the milk.
And they say things like, well, this is our policy and you have to do this for your baby to come here.
Yeah.
I had somebody who just recently messaged me and was like, my daycare said that as soon as my baby hits 6 months, that I need to increase their breast milk by 6 ounces and introduce solids. That was the policy of the daycare. And she's like, do I really need to do that? And I'm like, what?
Why does the daycare get to make up their own policy on the health of your baby?
And why does the daycare think that the baby just one day overnight is going to start drinking 6 more ounces of breast milk? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And I did have somebody tell me one time that their daycare, the policy of their daycare was they had to leave formula or had to sign something to approve them to use formula. This is an exclusively breastfeeding baby, just in case of an emergency. So that would give them free reign to formula feed this baby as they saw fit for an emergency. And I was like, no. Why? I don't understand that at all. That's not okay. But a lot of times what we see is you send your baby to, it doesn't even matter. It can be a daycare. It can be a grandparent. It can be a family member, whoever it is. And your baby is fussy because it's your baby. And now you're leaving them all day long with a stranger. And they're fussy, or they're not settled, or maybe they're not napping, or maybe they're crying a little bit more, or maybe they're overstimulated by all the activity going on in the daycare around them. They're missing you. They don't know what the hell's going on. Now they're in a different place. And the first thing they're going to say to you is, I think they're still hungry. You're going to need to leave more milk. No. Your baby didn't all of a sudden get super hungry the minute you went back to work.
Right.
That is not what's going on here. We do not need to overfeed them. And then you run into that. If you give them the bottle, they take it. So, well, yeah, they need more. Or then they start, I've heard this too, the comparison. Well, the baby over here is the same age as your baby, and they're getting 8 ounces per bottle. I don't care. I had one mom, client of mine that her baby is like, it just turned 2 in September. And she did go back, she went back to work only for a couple months, and then COVID hit, and then the whole daycare thing. And she had so much trouble with the daycare, and finally just quit her job because she's like, I can't do this anymore. But she had one of those babies that was just a fussier baby anyway. And she was like she just never fed. She never took large volumes of milk. She just wasn't one of those babies. She'd be fine with 2 ounces every 2 hours. And that was it. The daycare actually at one point would fight with the mom. And mom's like, no, you cannot give her more than that. This is what she eats. She gets 2 ounces every 2 hours, and that is it. And she would have to fight with them about the paste feeding and fight with them about the volume. And at one point they were even like, well, what does her pediatrician think? She was like, my pediatrician is fine with this. What is wrong with you? Like, are you kidding me? You will have to argue like you would not believe sometimes with caretakers. And it just, I mean, I know I went through it a little bit with my mom too when she
Oh,
had my
yeah.
kids.
But yeah, the daycare, but the family can be just as bad because then they have free reign to just tell you what to do.
Right.
They
and they
think.
just, and they think, well, I can just give them this bottle. Babies like to suck. It is very soothing. It is very comforting. So sometimes people say, well, when I took the bottle out of the baby's mouth, they just cried. So I just gave them more. Babies cry for many reasons. It's not always food related.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you constantly have to be feeding your baby because they're fussy. Sometimes they're fussy because they're feeding too much. Just like when we overeat, it doesn't feel good. It's the same way with babies. If they get over full, you are going to see more spitting up. Sometimes people will feed and feed and feed their baby and they don't spit up when you're the lucky one, but maybe they poop a ton. I have that too. Well, do they poop a lot? Oh yeah. Every single diaper, constantly they're pooping. And then they got a horrible diaper rash. And it's like, well, it's because that's the excess, right? Like their body doesn't need that. So that's how they're getting rid of it. It's the excess. So they might be taking it in and not spitting it up, but maybe they're pooping a lot, or maybe they're fussier, or maybe they have reflux. We see that a lot too. A lot of times these babies are on reflux meds and it's like, okay, well, what's their weight gain like? And you look at their weight gain, they're gaining, 3 ounces a day. It's like, well, that's why. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weight gain and it's too much on that. It's like too much food. And then they end up with a lot of reflux. And then people go, oh, they're fussy. They must need to eat more. Oh, they don't need to eat more. We need to back off of the feeding. It's not always about the food. Sometimes they need other stimulation. They don't need to just keep eating all the time. They love to eat. They want to eat. They just want to eat. They're just, miserable unless you're feeding them. Why, I don't, why did we have these kids to just feed? I don't understand. They don't do anything else. All they do is they come out and they just want to eat all the time. They don't have anything else. There's nothing else to do with them.
I think it's the whole thing. We don't, we go to school and we go through I don't know, what feels like 50 years of math, but
right?
There's not a single class on what do babies act like? And I feel I think that schools think that if they teach people about this stuff, that then all the teenagers are going to go and make babies.
Oh God.
If we teach how to you have safe sex, then they're all going to go out and have sex. But no, people need to be taught about what teach people about their bodies, teach them about babies, how babies act, teach them about child development. We don't teach any of this. And so we have this baby. We have no idea. We think it's a little human that just wants to watch Lifetime and eat bonbons all day.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I want to do.
The other problem that happens, and I think this maybe not only just caretakers, I think, parents probably could fall into this little black hole as well, is finishing the bottle because we don't want to waste it. And that kind of just goes along with our whole culture of we don't want to waste food. Finish your meal. And you don't want to waste milk. You don't want to waste formula. It's expensive. You see that a lot with babies that are bottle fed. It's expensive. So, and it was easier to make a 5-ounce bottle or a 6-ounce bottle than it is to make, 4.5 ounces. So they have to finish it because it's wasteful and you have to throw it away if they don't. Of course, with breast milk, you do not have to throw it away. And a lot of people think you do, but you do not. But formula, you absolutely have to throw it away if they don't finish it. And people don't want to waste that. So they just make their baby finish it. And
that's right. Clean your plate.
Exactly. Clean your plate. But that is definitely a thing. That is especially, like I said, with caretakers, I do see it with family members as well. Well, we got to finish the bottle kind of thing. But caretakers are really big on that, not wasting it and making sure those bottles are finished. And it's just, being able to talk to your caretakers about ways the paced feeding is huge, making sure that they are paced feeding, which can be a battle, but it's important. But also talking about ways to calm and soothe your baby and without feeding, because that's really important. They don't always have to be fed. I think people feel like, well, the baby didn't go right to sleep after they ate, so they must still be hungry. So like what? We want them in a coma? Feed them and sleep? Feed them and sleep? Like that's not okay either. They don't have to sleep every time they eat. They can be awake a little bit. And knowing, the newborn stage of knowing their baby's cues, that is really, I do a lot of education with parents about this because like you said, we just don't talk about this. This is nothing that we learn anywhere. And then these babies are born and people are like, oh, they're just starving. We just got to keep feeding them. I talked to this one mom. She was a bottle feeding mom. This was out of our pediatric practice. And this was one of the ones that one of the doctors was like, will you please talk to this mom because the baby's overfeeding. And she was strictly bottle feeding. And we were kind of talking about, cues and things like that. And she was funny because she was like, I really feel like he's overeating. And like that was in all the notes, whenever she came to the doctor's office, she would say, I feel like he's overeating. When I talked to her on the phone, she was like, I really feel like he's overeating. Like, okay, what's happening? Well, he's doing this and this. And people keep saying, oh, he must be hungry. He must be hungry. She goes, so I keep feeding him because everybody's telling me just keep feeding him because it seems like he's hungry. She goes, I feel like he's overeating. And I go, I feel like that he's overeating then. Like if you feel like he's overeating, you're his mom, And she was like, and he was gaining, like I did the math on his weight gain because I had all that info. He was gaining almost 70 grams a day, which is, almost 3 ounces a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it is a lot. It was and I told her, I said, okay, we expect babies to gain 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce a day, which is about 30 grams. I said, your baby's at about 67. And she was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, it's too much. It's a lot, and we have to think about time frames too. And I was like, okay, how often is your baby eating? Okay. Every 3 hours, every 2 to 3 hours, every 3 hours. Okay. How much is he getting? 4 or 5 ounces every 3 hours. Like that's a lot of food. And I see that a lot of times when parents will contact me about returning to work and they're sending milk to daycares and the daycare says this is not enough. And I'm like, how much are they giving to your baby? Sometimes they're giving them 6 ounces in 2 hours. And I'm like, that's too much.
Right. Because we also think because we have to give the same, they think that putting breast milk in the bottle is the same as formula in the bottle. When it's not a different amount. Your baby's not going to drink more than 4 ounces of breast milk ever. Right? Usually 2 to 3 ounces.
Yeah, maybe 4, but it shouldn't be more than 4. And those people that say, oh, but he's 6 months old, why isn't he taking 8 ounces? No, they don't need that. Your baby's milk changes, or your baby's milk will change to accommodate their needs. So they don't need more volume. It's more concentrated.
With formula, they need more volume.
They need more volume.
And so the daycare is just like, well, then the breast milk needs to increase too. Because we don't understand breastfeeding and breast milk.
Right. We do not understand it. We don't understand babies. And I'm not like, oh, you just don't understand. It's more of like, we just don't get it.
Like we're not taught is what I mean. We're not taught. As a society, we don't understand because we don't have the information. We don't have this information.
We don't. And I tell people all the time, your baby, and I think people think that their baby is born and we should automatically know. And it's like, this is a whole different language. It's like somebody dropping you into a foreign country and being like, good luck to you. Because it's the baby's cues and the baby's languages it is totally new. And it takes time to figure out what is it that your baby is trying to tell you? You don't know that on day one. Some of it maybe. Some of it is definitely instinctual. But then you've got the outside influences saying, oh, you're wrong. You're wrong. And then that throws you off too.
Yeah, I'm sorry you broke up there a little.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Because I got so violently passionate about my topic.
The microphone was like, ah! I think they heard you. I just couldn't quite. It was a little garbly. But I think it was not. They heard you. But I was going to say, this is something that is broken down, that has been broken down from the separation of the village and the extended family. We used to live with our extended families as humans. and we don't anymore. And we're not around babies. Like we've always, as humans, have been around babies. You know, babies are born, we're around, we help, maybe we're on the periphery or we're directly involved, but we've been around all generations. And now we're not. We put old people in homes. We put moms with babies, you know, in the house. Every family has their own little house. And so we don't get it.
Right.
We don't understand even like what a baby is like. I mean, I remember when I had a baby was the first time I'd really ever been around a baby. And my sister was like, you know, I'm like, you want to hold him? And she was just like, she like took him and she was just like, he started crying. She was just like holding it like, you know, 5 inches away from her. She was so uncomfortable. Like we just aren't around. We're completely separated. It's all broken down. It has all broken down. We've completely broken down the family unit. And it's done a disservice to us.
It is. Yeah, it's not okay.
So it's not you, it's society, which is the moral of all of my stories.
That's pretty much become my moral as well.
Yeah.
I get very frustrated with it. But
well, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. We're going to link a bunch of cool stuff because like I said, this is my biggest thing is overfeeding. I see it so much. So we're going to link a bunch of stuff in the show notes and make sure you check it out.
Yeah. And I cannot find the paste bottle feeding video that is just a few minutes long. I can only find the really long video I did with the giveaway. So I will find you go to the badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, go to the show notes, and I will tell you the minute to fast forward to actually see the demo of the paste bottle feeding.
Perfect. Cool.
Happy New Year.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.